court is back in session. You may be seated.
Your Honor, for the purpose of the record, we return back to the trial Commonwealth versus Lindsay Clancy. All parties are present, excluding the jury.
All right, before we proceed with this, could I just see counsel briefly sidebar? All right, so we ready for the jury?
Yes.
Do you have some water up there?
I do, thank you.
Court, all rise, please. Jury. Court is back in session. You may be seated.
Your Honor, for the purpose of the record, we return back to the trial Commonwealth versus Lindsay Clancy. All parties are present, including the defendant and including the 18 jurors.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. Attorney Sprague?
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Now, you testified in direct examination about the statements that Lindsay made in December about having thoughts about harming the children. When in December was that?
I don't exactly remember. I would say early to mid December, probably maybe earlier rather than mid-December, but I don't exactly remember when.
Okay. And when she made the statement that she had thoughts of harming the children, did either you or Patrick ask her what she meant by that?
I believe I remember Pat asking her if she felt like she couldn't be alone with the children, and she said no.
And after she made those statements, did you have any thoughts about committing her?
No.
Did you have any thoughts about having her come stay with you in Connecticut away from the children?
No.
Were you concerned for the children's safety at that point in time?
No, because I was there.
Okay. And you were asked about some text messages in October, and those are now an exhibit, I believe. Exhibit 276. And so you talked about the text on the 20th when she asked you to come and she was having a hard time, right?
Yes.
A day before, on October 19th, she had sent you a different text message stating, "Hi, Mom. Would you ever consider coming to stay with us for a couple days at a time to help with childcare so I can work?" And talking to a therapist and doing a lot of thinking, I actually think going to work will help me, but it's really hard with nurses' hours to get childcare that we need. I'm thinking if you could come like Sunday to mid-Tuesday, it'd be really helpful. Just a thought. Do you remember that text the day before?
Yes.
And did you agree in a text message that you said I can come and help out?
Yes.
And then after that next day is when she said she was having trouble and wanted you there then, and you went that day, correct? But you said you were there for about a week, but there's a text on October 20th that's not included in this exhibit, where on October 24th at 2:36 p.m., you send a text to her saying, "How are things today?" And she responds, "Good." You remember that?
Yes.
So were you already home at that point when you were asking her how she was doing on the 24th?
I must have been home at that point. I honestly don't remember. I was back and forth so many times. So the time frames are really jumbled in my head as far as how long I stayed any particular time.
And so you would go and help out when they asked you to, and then you would go home when things were calmed down a little bit. Is that right?
Not exactly right.
No? And she did say on the 24th that she was doing good that day, correct?
I don't recall, but if that's what the text says, then.
Here you go, you can look at it.
Yeah. Okay.
So she told you at that point on the 24th she was doing good, right?
Correct.
You could have this page marked as the next exhibit.
Any objection? No. That may be marked.
277.
Now, you talked about a time when you went to her home and you actually ended up sleeping with her because she didn't want to be alone. Was that October 20th visit?
No.
When was that?
That was, I can't exactly remember when. I'm going to say probably sometime in November, the latter part of November, maybe the early part of December.
Did she tell you why she was afraid to be alone?
She said she just said she was afraid to be alone. And one reason I believe she said she didn't know if she was going to be able to sleep, but mainly she was afraid to be alone.
And at that point in time, did you consider having her committed to a psychiatric facility?
No.
And did you feel the need to call 911 that day or get her immediate assistance?
No.
You mentioned that in January you saw her and she lost weight. She seemed paranoid about things, seemed to be going through the motions of each day. How often did you see her in January of 2023?
In January, I can't exactly remember how many times I saw her. We were, again, back and forth.
So we have Exhibit 238, which have all of your text messages with Lindsay in January of 2023. And I just want to go through some of them with you. So on page 17 of the exhibit, this is on January 4th, 2023, so the day before she was discharged from McLean. And she sent you a text stating, "Think I'm coming home tomorrow evening, !" I talked to the doctor and I made up a follow-up appointment with my other psychiatrist besides Rebecca for Friday morning. So she said she'd be okay with me leaving Thursday around 5. Do you remember getting those messages?
Yep.
And were you staying at the home helping out with the kids at that point?
Yes.
And did you go to Cora's birthday party on the 7th?
I did not. It was a children's party. I stayed home with Callan.
Okay. And do you recall when you went home?
I don't recall.
I'm looking at page 28, and there's a text from Lindsay on January 7th, 2023 at 7:02 p.m. to you where it says, make it home okay, and you said, yep. Does that make sense that you would have gone home on the 7th after the birthday party?
Yes, if that's what the text says, yes.
And then on page 29, we have text messages between yourself and Lindsay on January 8th, where you ask how things are going today, and she says, good, going to the Science Museum. You say, great, that will be fun, sleep good last night, and she said, I actually did, with less Ativan, so that was good. Do you remember that?
I don't recall the exact text messages.
Do you recall her texting you about going to the Science Museum?
No, I don't recall that.
Do you think looking at them might help?
Sure.
I'm going to show you page 29 and then page 30. Does that refresh your memory?
That's what the text says, yes.
And then on page 34, you ask how the museum was today, and Lindsay sent you some photographs and said it was fun, the kids really liked it. Do you remember that?
I don't really recall the Museum of Science experience or text, but if they're there in the text messages, then they were sent, yes.
Okay. Then on page 39, this is January 10th. You say at 9:48 a.m., good morning, how are you doing today? And Lindsay responded, good, at the gym with the kids. You said, nice, still sleeping good. And she responded, pretty good, yeah, not perfect, but enough. And you said, are you feeling any better during the day? And she said, so far, a little bit. They said a week off the Seroquel should make more of a difference, so a couple more days till that, but I do think it's helping being off. And you responded, okay, a little at a time. Do you remember that conversation?
So I don't recall the exact conversation. I think I probably texted back and forth to Lindsay almost daily during that time. So I don't remember the specific text messages, but I would say if they're there, then that's what we sent back to each other.
Okay. And then there were further text messages that day. Where you say, how was your day later on in the day? And she said it was good, played with the kids a lot, were able to go outside, Kingsbury Club and gymnastics, kept them busy, and me too. So do you remember her talking to you during that time about going to gymnastics and going to the Kingsbury Club and things like that with the children?
I don't remember the specific text, but I do remember her doing things with the children, yes.
Then on January 11th, the following day, you sent a text, excuse me, how are you feeling today? And she responded with a photo of Callan drinking out of a Mary Lou's cup, saying we have another Mary Lou's fan. And you said decaf looks like he's enjoying it. And then later on you asked again, how are you doing today? And she said, hi mom, doing all right, nothing new really, just taking it day by day. You said still feeling a little better, and she said a little bit. You said sleeping okay. She said not great last night because Cora was up with a bellyache. Do you remember that?
So again, We texted so many times, daily, twice daily, maybe 3 times daily, so I can't say that I remember the specific text. I do remember the picture of Callan with the Mary Lou cup because that stands out in my mind. But the specific text going back and forth, we just did it so often that I can't say I remember the specific text you're reading back to me.
Okay.
But again, if they were there, then we
Then you-
sent them.
Right. And do you remember Lindsay talking to you about Cora having stomach issues during the month of January?
Yes.
Some belly aches off and on?
Yes.
And then January 13th, again, you're checking in with her. Hi, Lindsay, how are you today? She said, hi, Mom, pretty good today. How about you? And you asked about the little ones, and she said, all good, went to the gym this morning, just hanging out, and now they have no school today. And then the following day, again, you're checking in. Hi, Lindsay, how's your Saturday going? She said, hi, Mom, it's going well, just hanging out. It's yucky here. So these are like daily check-ins that you're doing, checking in on her, seeing if she's okay, seeing if she's feeling better, seeing if she's sleeping well, things like that, right?
Yes.
You also ask her that day on the 14th, do you feel any different since being off the Seroquel? She says, not as much as I was hoping, going to talk to my psychiatrist about it on Monday. You say, but some. She says a little, but I still don't feel like you, but then she corrects it to me. And you ask her if she's going to be able to get outside with the kids today, and she said she's going to try. So similar conversations to that where you're talking about medication and how she's doing on the medication?
Yes, I get.
Then the following day, on the 15th of January, you say, good morning, is it a good morning for you today? She says, good morning, it's pretty good going to an indoor water park. And she tells you that it's at the Cape Cod. Do you remember them going to the Cape Cod water park?
I do remember them going there, yes.
And then on the following day, on the 16th, you actually texted her, how was the water park yesterday? She said it was fun. Cora and Dawson enjoyed. Callan didn't know what to think of it. Couldn't get any pics because it was too hectic, keeping track of them in the water and stuff. And it was busy, but it was a good time. Does that sound familiar, that they had a good time that day? And you asked her that day if she had anything planned, and she said Pat took Cora skiing, so she was hanging with the boys. Do you remember that?
Not specifically, I don't remember that text.
She, that same day, sent you some photographs of Dawson doing a drawing of a firefighter and Callan. Do you remember those, receiving those?
I do remember the pictures, yes.
Then the following day, again, you're checking in every day. You say, you feeling better? She says, a little bit. You said, still taking the same medication. She said, yes, about to have an appointment with her psychiatrist. You said, let me know how it goes. And she said, okay. And then she responds back after her appointment. She recommended another antidepressant since my mood is still very low off the Seroquel. You asked her how she felt about it. And she told you she just wants to feel like herself again, but she's up for trying it. And she just wants to get back to who she was, right?
Correct.
And she told you it was amitriptyline. Is that right? Do you remember that?
I don't remember the medication.
Okay. Then on the 18th, January 18th, again, you're reaching out, and she says, hi, Mom, I'm doing all right. How about you? And you say you're good. You're thinking about visiting that weekend. And she says, that sounds good. And you ask her about being able to get out and exercise, and she said she's been walking on the treadmill at the gym for exercise. And you asked her if she started a new medication and if she's feeling better. And she says, feel okay, just not great. I did start it 2 nights ago. You said, is that the one that takes a while to feel the effects? She said, yep, weeks. And you said, is the okay that you're feeling now better than what you were feeling a few weeks ago? And she said, yes. Do you remember that?
Again, I don't remember the specific text, just remember texting back and forth daily about how she's feeling, about, what's different medication-wise, but I can't say I remember that specific text that you're reading me. But again, if they're there, then they were done by us.
Right. And so on the 19th of January, again, you're checking in and say, how are you feeling today? Can you tell if anything's different with the new medication? She says, I'm feeling all right. Nothing new really yet because it takes weeks to really work, but I'm okay. You asked if she's still sleeping well, and she says decently. And the kids get up a lot. So again, more of the same check-ins daily, seeing how she's doing, seeing how she's sleeping, right?
Correct.
And then on the 20th, you reach out, is it pizza and movie night? She says just pizza and playing. And you tell her you're leaving at 9, bringing dessert for the kids. And she says, sounds great. So you're talking about your visit that weekend. Is that right?
Yes.
And in these texts prior to the visit, you say that it's been a while since you've seen them. So it sounds like from these texts, you're checking in with her every day from January 7th, 2023, all the way up to your visit on January 21st, 2023. You're checking in with her. So you're at home in Connecticut from the 7th until the 21st.
Correct.
And then on the 22nd, that Sunday, Lindsay, Pat, and the older kids, they go to the Carney's house for that bonfire and get together, and you stayed home with Callan, right?
Correct.
And then after they get home, you and your husband left, is that correct?
Yes.
And on the way home, you texted on January 22nd, 2023 at 7:55 p.m., enjoyed seeing everyone this weekend. Nice to see you doing better. Is that correct?
If that's what that says, yes, that's correct. I don't exactly remember the text, but yes, if that's what it says, yes.
So from your text, not saying she was doing great, but she was doing better than she was, according to your text, or appeared to be.
The text from me was meant to encourage her because I didn't think it did any good to discourage her. So the text was meant not necessarily what I actually observed that weekend, but it was meant to encourage her because I was encouraging her to do things with the kids to kind of try to get back to normal. So it's not necessarily a representation of exactly what I observed that weekend.
But that weekend, she was able to go to a friend's house with the older kids and Pat and spend a few hours there, correct?
Correct.
And she was able to do activities and hang out with you and your husband. There's a photograph and evidence of the two of you sitting on the couch smiling and hanging out together. So you were able to interact with her, correct?
Correct. The photograph was taken by Cora because Cora wanted to use my phone and take her picture. So Lindsay and I were going to put a smile on our face and let Cora take a picture. Yes. But again, there was other observations I made that weekend, but it was not, I didn't think it was in Lindsay's best interest to discourage her or point out those because she was making every attempt to feel better and to do things to make herself feel better. So as a mother, I was encouraging her.
Well, you didn't say, I hope you feel better, or you're going to get there, or you're doing it. You actually said, nice to see you doing better, correct? That's what you wrote?
Those were my encouraging words, yes.
And from January 7th up through January 22nd, Lindsay repeatedly told you she was doing okay, she was feeling a little bit better. Not completely better, not 100%, but she kept telling you, I feel a little bit better, I feel a little bit better. You even asked her, is the better you're feeling now better than a few weeks ago? And she said yes, correct?
That's correct without my observation of her.
And what she was responding to you in text, correct?
Correct.
You also spoke to the police on January 25th, 2023. Do you remember that?
I do.
Do you remember telling the police that Lindsay seemed to be improving since leaving McLean?
I do not recall. I remember speaking to the police. I had just found out what had happened, and I was pretty much in shock. So anything I remember, honestly, I remember 2 things I told the police. Anything else that you have there, I must have said, but I don't recall them. I've been going through my mind. I can honestly recall 2 things I told the police during that interview. I was pretty much in shock.
Okay, so do you remember telling them that she seemed brighter lately?
I don't recall.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Reddington?
What do you want? Oh, you mean the ones that you didn't mark?
Yes.
Oh, this was one. Oh, okay.
That's all right, I can check later. Just looking here through the exhibits, District Attorney stood up and said to you that I had introduced into evidence and showed you Exhibit 276, which would be a list of texts dated on October 19th. Do you remember that? It was the black one. It was the copies. It wasn't green and blue. You recall that this was introduced into evidence? Do you recall her questioning you from this?
On October 19th?
Yeah, this is the one that I had introduced, was Exhibit 276, and the date would be October 19th, your text thread.
Oh, yes,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
And then she said, well, there's something missing, and went up and said to you, this text, which would be 277. You recall that? I'm going to show it to you.
Yes.
Okay. So what I had introduced was a text thread from October 19th up through and including October 20th. Is that fair to say? Right there?
Yes.
Okay. And the reason I introduced this is because we had introduced earlier, like a whole lot of pages text. And I wanted to focus on the text thread where she said, Mommy, can you stay?
Objection.
Sustained.
So when the district attorney suggested that there's something missing, like I left it out or something, is it fair to say that Exhibit 277 is a totally different date? Look at the date. What is the date that the DA is talking about? You see it on there?
1023.
1023. It has nothing to do with the text thread that I introduced, right? It's a day or two after that, right?
Right.
If you know.
Yes.
Now, we had introduced into evidence also the Celebrate record as Exhibit 238 that the state police for the district attorney's office had printed out. That is only the month of January. Do you recall that testimony?
Yes. Yes.
And then I introduced into evidence, or tried to introduce into evidence, all of the texts between you and your daughter, right?
Yes.
I think, Your Honor, that's what's, thank you. Okay. This was, I attempted to introduce it, it was objected to, I believe, and it was marked for identification. I would now like to re-offer this in its entirety.
I see counsel sidebar, please.
Thank you very much. That's all I have.
All right. Almost?
And when you were asked about Exhibit 271 and the text messages on October 23rd and October 24th, that was to establish when you left the home that week of the 20th, correct? Because you said, how are things today? And she said good, implying that you were no longer with them, correct?
I believe so, yes.
Thank you.
All right. Anything on that, counsel?
Oh, no, thank you.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Let me sit down. Thank you. All right, defendant?
Yes. I call Dr. Welcome.
Good afternoon. You solemnly swear that the testimony in the evidence you shall give is correct and the truth, and you will be attended by should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Thank you, sir. You can have a seat.
All right, good afternoon. All right, Mr. Rankin, why don't you hold off? I'm going to give an instruction.
Oh, sure.
At this point.
Yep.
So, members of the jury, I just want to give you an instruction. It's one I probably should have given a little bit earlier in the trial as well. It's going to apply to this witness. It applies to a number of witnesses who testified earlier, and it's going to apply to a number of witnesses who testify after. And it's in regards to expert witnesses. All right. So, generally, in cases that are tried in our courts, witnesses may testify only to facts that are within their own personal knowledge. Right? That's things that they've personally seen, heard, or felt. However, in a variety of cases, issues arise that are beyond the experiences of laypersons. In those type of cases, we allow a person with specialized training or experience called an expert witness to testify, and to testify not only to facts but also to opinions and the reasons for their opinions on issues that are within that witness's field of expertise and are relevant material to the case. Because a particular witness has specialized training and experience in their field, does not put that witness on a higher level than any other witness, and you are to treat the so-called expert witness just like you would treat any other witness. In other words, as with any other witness, it's completely up to you to decide whether you accept the testimony of any expert witness, including the opinions that they give. It's also entirely up to you to decide whether you accept the facts that are relied on by the expert, and to decide what conclusions, if any, you draw from the witness's testimony. You're free to reject the testimony and opinion of such a witness in whole or in part if you determine that the opinion is not based on sufficient education and experience, that the testimony of the witness is motivated by some bias or interest in the case. You must keep firmly in mind that you alone decide what the facts are. So if you conclude that an expert's opinion is not based on the facts as you find those facts to be, then you may reject the testimony and the opinion of the expert in whole or in part. You must remember that expert witnesses do not decide cases, juries do. So in the last analysis, an expert witness is like any other witness in the sense that you alone make the judgment about how much credibility and weight you give to that expert's testimony and what conclusions you draw from the testimony. All right? And I'll go into that a little bit more at the end when I go into the more extensive instructions that I'll give you at the end of the trial. All right, Mr. Rankin.
Afternoon.
Afternoon.
Can you tell us your name and spell your name?
It's Michael Wolfovich. It's V as in Victor, U-L, F as in Frank, O, V as in Victor, I-C-H.
And what do you do for work, sir?
I'm an emergency medicine doctor. I work full-time at Newton Wellesley Hospital.
Newton Wellesley?
Yes.
And can you tell us are you board certified, sir?
I am. I'm board certified in emergency medicine.
And that would be by the American Board of Emergency Medicine?
Correct.
And how long have you been practicing emergency medicine?
I did 3 years of residency, and this is my 13th year as a full-time attending.
And you're presently employed, where is it?
Newton Wellesley Hospital primarily, and then I do some additional shifts at Emerson Hospital in Concord.
How about medical school? Where'd you go to med school?
St. Louis University School of Medicine.
And what year did you graduate?
2011.
Obviously licensed in the Commonwealth.
Yes, sir.
In the course of your training and experience, sir, do you work full-time in a particular field of medicine?
Just emergency medicine. So basically we see any and all comers, anything from ankle sprains to traumas.
Okay. Did I ask you to review some documents regarding this particular case involving Lindsay Clancy?
You did. You asked me to review the...
Very what you reviewed.
Oh, sorry. You asked me to review the photos from the crime scene and then the emergency medical records from South Shore Hospital, Brigham and Women's Hospital, and then the records from her hospital stay at Brigham and Women's Hospital.
So in reviewing all of those various hospital records, sir, you're aware that on January 24th of 2023, she initially was transported to South Shore Hospital. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And can you tell the jurors what's treatment she received at the South Shore Hospital briefly?
So she arrived with a GCS of 10, meaning she was not really very responsive.
Let me interrupt you just because what did you say, a G6?
GCS, Glasgow Coma Scale.
Okay, slow down, because I don't understand. What is a GCS?
It's a Glasgow Coma Scale. It's a series of things that we look at to determine how responsive somebody is. You know, whether their eyes are opening spontaneously, whether they're able to speak on their own, and whether you're able to understand what they're saying, and then how much, if at all, they're moving, whether they're moving spontaneously, whether they can follow commands, that kind of thing.
Okay. So the Glasgow Coma Scale, GCS of 10, what does that tell you as an emergency room doctor?
Tells us that she was not very responsive on arrival. It sounds like she was not speaking intelligibly, and the doctors at South Shore Hospital were concerned about her ability to maintain her own airway and made the decision to intubate her, which means putting a breathing tube down her throat into her lungs and placing her on a ventilator and sedating her.
Was she also, what would be, I guess, referred to as hypothermic?
She was.
What does that mean?
Means that her body temperature was below what's considered normal. So in her case, her core body temperature was, I believe, 82.1 degrees, which would put her into severe hypothermia.
And did you note that she was tachycardic and hypotensive?
Yes.
What did that mean?
So it means that her heart rate was above 100, and hypotensive means that her blood pressure was below what is considered normal.
And South Shore Hospital, were they able to stabilize her?
It sounds like they were able to stabilize her by placing a breathing tube in her neck, in her throat, to help with her breathing, and then they basically proceeded to obtain a bunch of imaging, started her on medications to sedate her and artificially raise her blood pressure. They started working on rewarming her, and then in conjunction with the trauma team there, they made the decision that she would be better served at a hospital with a higher level of care.
Okay. And can you tell us what the injuries were that she presented herself with to the South Shore Hospital?
So there were multiple injuries. She had lacerations to bilateral wrists.
When you say lateral, what does that mean?
Bilateral, both sides. So she had a laceration both to her left wrist and to her right wrist, and then multiple superficial lacerations as well. And then she also had multiple superficial lacerations to both sides of her neck, the front of her neck, and 2 deeper lacerations to the sides of her neck.
So when you say superficial lacerations and then deeper lacerations, do you recall what's the standard? What do you look for in something like that?
So it's tough. Everybody will describe them a little bit differently. In her case, I would describe multiple superficial lacerations, which would typically mean kind of scrapes on the surface of the skin, nothing that actually gets through the full thickness of the skin. And then she also had full thickness lacerations, meaning that she made it all the way through the skin into the subcutaneous tissue, the fatty tissue. And then you would need to describe it further if any additional structures were injured, which in her case they were not.
Now, in your experience for a number of years in the emergency room, have you had occasion to treat people that have tried to commit suicide or successfully committed suicide by cutting their throat?
Multiple times.
Multiple times. And can you tell us, in your opinion, to a reasonable degree of medical certainty, sir, as to whether or not this injury or these injuries that you observe were consistent with what you've seen in other suicide attempts?
Sustained.
Well, can you tell us, did that look like an effort to pretend or fake a suicide?
Sustained.
Well, when you looked at the injuries, did you make a determination that they appeared to have some impact on the human body of Ms. Clancy?
Yes.
What was that?
They were consistent with self-injurious behavior. The intent, I can't gauge, but...
Anything further?
Okay.
Next question.
Yep, thank you. How about the wrist? What did you observe about the wrist injuries, sir?
So she had 2 full-thickness lacerations, one on the left and one on the right.
What does that mean?
It means that she made it all the way through the epidermis and the dermis, which is what makes up the skin in the wrist, and into the fatty tissue, which is the next layer.
Okay. Are you familiar in your experience, sir, with hesitation wounds in a suicide attempt?
Yes, to some extent.
What does that mean?
Means typically that they're more kind of subtle, weaker attempts to hurt yourself, not necessarily anything that's going to be deep to the structures of the skin, but more just scrapes along the surface.
Okay, and you noticed some of those on the neck area as well, is that correct?
There were multiple of those on both the neck and the wrists.
As it relates to the injuries to the wrists, did you observe any vascular structures or penetration of the cervical, the fascia?
There was not.
Okay. What other injuries did you recall from reviewing the medical records?
So she also had multiple fractures in her cervical spine, which are the vertebrae that make up her neck, including what's called a burst fracture of C1, and then other fractures of C4. She also had fractures of multiple levels of the thoracic spine. I believe she had multiple transverse process fractures on both the right and left.
What does that mean, transverse fractures?
Transverse processes are lateral projections, basically projections that go sideways off of the bone that allow the ribs to articulate, connect with the spine, and they also allow muscles to connect, and they help support the basically overall ring structure of the spinal canal.
And was she then transported by med flight or life flight to a Boston hospital?
She was.
What does that tell you as an emergency surgeon when someone's transported by med flight or life flight?
Typically means that her injuries are felt to be severe enough that she needs immediate intervention and further treatment, that the hospital that is basically necessitating the transport is saying that they cannot provide at their facility.
She was then transported to what hospital?
Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston.
She was admitted to what unit?
Surgical ICU.
And you had a chance to review all those medical records as well?
I did.
Did she suffer a particular event that night that you recall from looking at the records?
She did shortly after arriving in the surgical ICU. It sounds like they were moving her, and when they moved her, they noticed that her blood pressure dropped, her pulse became faint, and subsequently she actually suffered a complete cardiac arrest and required 2 rounds of cardiopulmonary resuscitation with compressions and medications before she was able to be revived.
And she also, to your knowledge, had suffered significant hemorrhage and had to have a fairly massive blood transfusion?
Yes, they placed chest tubes, which are basically plastic tubes that go into the chest cavity on both sides, and had about 300 cc's of blood come out from each side, and there was also noted to be significant hemorrhage around the spine and into the mediastinum, which is the portion of the chest that houses a lot of the organs like your esophagus, your trachea, blood vessels, that kind of thing.
Now, if there's a fracture or a serious fracture to, I believe it's C1, does that interfere possibly with a person's ability to breathe?
It does.
And how does that work?
So if you have a fracture that affects the spinal cord above a certain level, typically above the 3rd cervical vertebrae, it basically removes your ability to initiate breathing on your own. Your 3rd, 4th, and 5th cervical vertebrae, the nerves that lead from there, are the ones that are responsible for telling your diaphragm to go up and down and help you breathe. And so if you lose the ability to send that signal down to your diaphragm, you lose the ability to breathe.
Now, as it relates to your review of the medical records and review of the history, are you aware of the mechanism of the injuries that she suffered that you just described for the jury?
I am.
Tell us what that was, to your knowledge.
That she went out of her second-story window.
And going out of the window, obviously, did she strike the ground, or?
She did.
And that caused the injuries, the mechanism of injury?
Yes, it's consistent with all of her injuries.
Now, with your experience, sir, with, as you indicated, dealing with people in the emergency room and treating people that have been involved with sequential acts of self-harm, do you have an opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty as an emergency board-certified physician as to the effect of the combination of the multiple sequential injuries that you saw?
Objection.
Can I see counsel at sidebar? I'm just.
I can withdraw it, Judge. I'll withdraw it. Just thank you very much.
No questions.
All right. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.
All right. Counsel, now can I see it sidebar?
Okay.
All right. Members of the jury, I told you it was going to be stop and start, right? So we're going to stop now, but we're going to stop now for the day for you. I'm going to come back. I'm going to talk to counsel about setting some things up logistically for tomorrow. All right. So tomorrow, the plan would be, hopefully we'll start right at 9 or right as close as we can. And we'd hope to have a pretty full day in regards to the witnesses. All right. So I'm going to excuse you till tomorrow at 9. I'm going to remind you, don't talk about this case Don't read anything about it or anything about any similar cases. Don't do any research. Don't listen to anything. Don't post anything. You kind of know where I'm going, right? So I'm going to ask you to follow those instructions again. I'm going to give you those questions, and I hope you have a nice evening. We'll see you tomorrow morning. Okay? Thank you.
All rise, please, for your executive.
Jurors, the court of this closing session. Please seated.
Hey, Counsel, I see you sidebar just really in regards to tomorrow. Not very long. So these will be marked for identification. Those will be impounded.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you, counsel. All right. Anything else you should address before tomorrow morning, Commonwealth?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Reddington? All right. So I appreciate everybody's patience and work on this morning and this afternoon. So we'll be in recess on this matter till 9 o'clock tomorrow. Thank you.
Court, all rise.